Hello everyone and welcome to this video on projects. This is an introduction to both projects and project management. So we'll be going through some of the basics of project management. So we'll be covering what projects are as well as what project management is as a field, as well as looking at the life cycle of projects and the four major stages that make up a typical project life cycle. So if we start with the definition of project management, so this is from PMBOK, the Project Management Book of Knowledge. So it defines project management as the applications of knowledge, skills, tools and techniques to project activities in order to meet project requirements. So project management as a field is there in order to properly manage individual projects, to apply very specific techniques and tools to those projects in order to maximize the chances of achieving the project outcomes and running a successful project. So projects have been with us forever. We can think about lots of activities that we do as projects. We can think of lots of activities that organizations carry out as projects. So projects aren't new, they're not a recent invention, they've always been with us. But project management is a relatively new field dating back about 30 or 40 years with the development of very specific and very particular tools and techniques. And the development of very specialized skills in many cases in order to maximize the chances of project success. So we're going to go on and just take a bit of time to understand what projects are exactly. So the idea of project is really quite common. So you may be used to thinking of particular things as projects in your non-professional lives. So if you have a particular goal that you want to achieve, you may think of the attempt to achieve that goal as a project. So if you're looking to renovate your house, you may conceive of this as a project to renovate your house or your apartment. If you're looking to finish university, so to achieve your degree, you can think of as a project as well. So it's quite a common term to use, quite a common set of concepts to use both within organizations, but also in our own personal lives. But if we're going to break this down, this vague notion of what a project is, and be more precise with our definition, then we can identify some key elements. So a project has a start point and an end point. So projects aren't ongoing, and this is a big difference between projects and operations. So if you consider an operation, that's a set of ongoing activities. We can also call this business as usual. These are the things that the organization does. So if you consider the university as an organization, teaching isn't a project. Teaching is just what the university does. It's an ongoing set of continual activities. Research isn't a project. Research, again, is an ongoing set of activities, which is really the purpose of the university. However, if we were looking to build a new campus, if we were looking to renovate our library, which we've done over the last couple of years, then this does have a start point and an end point. So the start point is the beginning of the process to redevelop the library. The end point, or the definite end state, is when the library is completed, and then we transition that into an ongoing operation. So to build the library is a project, to run the library is an operation. So as well as a start point and an end point, we can identify specific defined goals or objectives, and those are also a hallmark of a project. Projects have specific objectives which they are attempting to meet. So to build a library to a particular specification, to have it to a particular standard or a particular quality level, that's a particular objective. To build it within, say, 6 months or 7 months, again, that's a defined time objective. So projects, as well as having start points and end points, will also have specific objectives or goals that they are trying to meet. In order to meet these goals, the last bit which is a useful element when thinking about projects, is that they have defined sets of resources. So the university will set aside a particular budget for the project. It'll have a particular set of time frames in mind for the project. It'll also have a particular set of physical resources, materials, and have a particular set of human resources in terms of employees and contractors. So all of these are resources that the project actually needs. So unlike an operation, which can have a shifting set of resources depending on what the immediate need is for the operation, or what cycle the operation is in, projects will tend to use a particular defined set of resources, and part of the success of a project is whether it's able to meet its defined objectives, whether those are time objectives or quality objectives, using that particular set of defined resources. We can add a few other things to this as well, because projects aren't ongoing continual activities. They exist at a particular point in time. We can conceive of projects as being unique. So if another university decided to take the blueprints for the new library and build the exact same library using those blueprints, that would still have a different set of surrounding circumstances or contexts. That's still a unique project in of itself, and we can see actually the existence of just things like the coronavirus is a pretty dramatic example, but any kind of project which is running even in another context will have a different set of circumstances. They are temporary, so projects are not ongoing continual activities like operations are. They exist within a particular context in order to achieve a particular aim. Once that aim's been achieved, the project is over, so projects end. And as a result, we have a degree of complexity inherent in projects, because we're doing something different from what we normally do. So it's not business as usual. It's not the fundamental purpose of the organization. It's something there to change the internal or external environment. And that too brings with it an element of uncertainty or risk. And if we were to move on and look at some examples of projects, hopefully we'll see all of these elements being fairly clear. So organizing emergency aid, we can see that as a temporary endeavor to meet a particular need that has a very particular time frame. It has particular objectives. There's particular resources associated with it. So we can see how that would fit into our definition of a project. The construction of the Channel Tunnel, that's not something which is going to be an ongoing activity. It's got a start point and an end point. Many projects, once they're finished, will transition or hand over or delivery or deliver the ultimate good or product into operational use. So the construction of the Channel Tunnel is a project. Once that construction was successfully completed and the project was successfully over, then it was transitioned over to another organization that then actually operated it as part of their everyday ongoing regular operations. So we can see there that the construction is temporary, it's unique, it had particular challenges, it had particular resources, it had a start point and an end point. But then once a Channel Tunnel was complete, we called this a deliverable. Something was then delivered over, in this case, to another external organization. In some cases, you can transition it over to another part of the internal organization, and then it becomes part of their ongoing regular operation. So running the Channel Tunnel is not a project, but the construction of the Channel Tunnel is. And that would apply for pretty much all of the rest of these examples as well. So hopefully the definition of a project becomes clearer once we start examining examples of actual projects and how they differ from the ongoing regular operations of organizations that these would be associated with. So with that understanding of projects, we can go forward and look at some of the major challenges inherent in projects or project management itself. So projects often fail, and projects fail even in successful organizations, and that's because the particular competencies, those particular skills that the organization has with their regular ongoing activities don't necessarily transfer over to these time limited temporary projects. So if you think about an organization such as let's say a bakery, their operations, their daily day-to-day business as usual involves baking new bread, baking their products and selling their products and marketing their products. And we could say that these are actually skills that the bakery has. So any bakery which is successful is almost by definition a bakery that has skills in baking, in producing their baked goods, and has some degree of skill in selling them to their customers and retaining their customers and so on. So that's their particular skill sets. That doesn't mean that those skills easily transfer over to a project. So perhaps they have a project in order to redevelop their interior or the fittings of their premises. That requires a completely different set of skills. So projects, even within successful companies, pose significant challenges. It's not something that if you're a successful company, you have skilled, experienced employees, that you'll be able to execute projects easily. Because remember, projects are not business as usual. They're not part of your everyday, day-to-day ongoing operations. So because of this, we have major challenges in three distinct areas. We could take first, for example, the process challenges that we have. So because running projects is different, this is a temporary endeavor. It's aiming at changing something, so changing something internally or externally within the organization, and therefore requires a different set of governance processes. It requires a development of different control processes in order to monitor the execution of the project, to keep the project on track, to make sure we stay on the budget. All of these new processes need to be developed, and that's a very big area within project management. And with you've got lots of examples of project management methodologies, such as the APM, the Association of Project Management, of Prince2, where one of the biggest focuses is really on getting the governance correct, getting the right governance processes in to make sure a project is actually orderly and efficiently run. We also have challenges when it comes to people. So because projects are temporary and have a defined set of objectives and not part of your employees' everyday operational activities, which means that actually forming project teams, you're forming a temporary team to achieve a very specific temporary objective. And that has its own human resource challenges. It has its own management challenges, and the human side of project management, again, has received quite a lot of attention in the literature. And we can add to this as well technology. So projects often involve the use of new technology or the application of new technology, and that brings with itself its own issues in competence and issues in training, issues in application and implementation. And that again is something which would exist alongside the regular ongoing use of technology in your operation. You may be implementing new types of technology as part of the project management process, or maybe the project itself is actually implementing new technology within your organization as part of the change that the project is trying to bring. I'm just going to zero in now on people and particularly project teams, because it's worth taking a few minutes just to look at this in a bit more detail. So we've said already that projects are very distinct from operations. So you may well have your departments, different departments. You may have different operational teams. You may have different functional teams, such as a marketing team. You may have a IT team, an engineering team. You may have a retail team. So all of these teams and all of these departments are part of your operations. They're part of your day-to-day activities. They're part of the business as usual. Now, because projects are unique and temporary, they're aimed at changing something. They're aimed at changing the internal or the external environment. They have very specific temporary goals or objectives. That means that we form a project team which is temporary, but it's formed alongside the regular operational teams, the regular operational roles and responsibilities. So just on the right hand side here, we actually have a basic outline of the typical groups involved in a project. So at the top we have the project sponsor, and this is usually someone from senior management who has recognized the need for these objectives to be achieved, and therefore sponsors a project to run internally. Different organizations will have different ways of arranging this. You may have project boards that serve to oversee projects in some organizations. You have what are called PSOs, or project support offices, or PMOs, project management offices, in other organizations whose role it is to oversee, monitor, and support projects within the organization. But there's usually an identified individual project sponsor who has taken on sponsorship or ownership of the project, usually again within senior levels of management. Now, for the actual running of the project and the execution of the project activities, you have one level just below that, which we the project manager. So the project manager is actually responsible for defining, designing and actually executing the project itself. And to do that, you'll see one level just below the project manager, you have the team members who are then assembled for that purpose. So these team members are going to almost certainly be pulled in from different departments, whatever skills the project needs in order to achieve its objectives. You're going to pull in people from different areas. So if you're running a project, for example, to implement or develop a new website, you may have people being pulled in from marketing, people pulled in from the IT department, people pulled in from the product side. So lots of different cross-functional team members will come together in the project team. It's likely that you will need some external expertise and external resources as well. So we see just to the left of team members, we see suppliers, which may well be rolled in and need to be overseen by the project manager as well. And then lastly, on the right hand side, we have the actual users of the project. So if we use our example of implementing a new website, we have to be mindful that the users of that website are stakeholders in the project as well. They are directly impacted and affected by how the project is executed and run. So while they are not employees necessarily, although users can and sometimes are employees, but they're not necessarily employees, they're not part of the project team, but they are stakeholders. They have to be consulted. We have to make sure that the project is delivered to the satisfaction of the relevant stakeholders. Right, so that's our overview of the basics or the foundations of project management. So we've looked at what a project is exactly, what project management is as a field, some of the unique features of projects and examples of projects, as well as taking a closer look at some of the major areas of project management challenges. Now, what we are going to do in the next video is going to be looking at the project life cycle. So looking at some of the major stages of the life cycle of a project, and how we progress from identifying the need to run a particular project all the way through to concluding the project, reviewing the lessons learned from the project, and handing over in some cases to business as usual or operations.